Speaking of something else that appears to be spreading like wildfire, it seems a growing number of Americans think that it is a-okay to not pay your debt. I have to play you this TikTok, but before I do, I want to mention one other trend I saw. I don't have a video on this, but there's plenty of them out there. Over 9 million Americans did not resume paying for their student loans when payments started back in October. Did you know that?
I did know that, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I've seen all over TikTok people saying, I'm not paying it. What's the worst that can happen? What are they going to do to all of us?
Actually, quite some bad things can happen. They can garnish your pay. Your credit score will be destroyed. Like, not a great idea, folks.
It's not a good idea at all.
And they're going to get their money.
Yeah, they're going to come after it. This is not a student loan trend video. This is more just general debt. But I was really shocked at this woman's just flippant attitude about her situation. Let's roll it, and then I want your thoughts.
I recently went viral for having $30,000 in credit card debt, and it even got picked up by Newsweek. There was an article featuring my credit card debt. And throughout the comments, a lot of people have been recommending different, financial gurus. And of course, people have been recommending Dave Ramsey. So here is why I do not subscribe to Dave Ramsey's snowball effect and his approach in general. So for starters, the entire premise of his plan hinges on having extra money to put towards. So you pay off everything. You pay your bills, you pay all your credit cards, you pay all your debts, and then any extra money you have, stop right there. Who the fuck has extra money? So then he's like, aha, yes, if you don't have extra money, get a second job, get a third job, eat rice and beans. That's actually something I joined a Dave Ramsey private Facebook group. People all the time reference rice and beans, rice and beans. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not willing to do anything to get out of debt. I'm not willing to eat rice and beans every day. I'm not willing to have 3 jobs and not spend time with my children. I'm not willing to forego my favorite salad on a Friday when I feel like getting one. My bills and my debt is so tremendous that $20 here, $100 there is not making an impact. The cost of living and low wages is to blame for the financial woes of most Americans. And being told that we can incrementally make these big differences if we just give up our quality of life for 5-10 years is absurd. I turned my $30,000 in credit card loans into a loan consolidation with an 8% interest rate. We're paying about $1,500 a month to pay that off. And it's painful because every month I'm like, wow, what could we have done with that $1,500? But I am not willing to eat rice and beans. I am not willing to have a night job. My mental health and my quality of life is more important to me than paying off that debt. And that doesn't make me a bad person.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts. I did notice that her username is leftist mommy, and that kind of tracks. But look, if you find yourself buried in credit card debt, that's like the worst type of debt to take out. And so you made some really bad choices along the way there. And I do have sympathy for her about the costs of living, right? Which is obscene, which has increased, has outstripped wages for a lot of people in recent years. And that's not her fault. That's totally beyond her control. And so I absolutely have sympathy for her on that much. And wages could be a lot higher and your dollars could go a lot further if we had better economic policies. But where you are not going to get an ounce of sympathy from me is the notion that you're unwilling to even sacrifice your nice salads on Fridays. Like maybe you're talking about sweet green or something. Like, babe, you can make a salad at home and not spend $14 on it. Because I will not give up the little things in my life. Well, that's fine, but don't look at us to pay it. I'm not paying your credit card bill, and that's the implied here. Someone has to pay the bill because if it doesn't get paid, then the company pays it, right? They get stiffed, right? Which then they'll pass on to other customers in different ways, or we'll have to cancel it and have taxpayers pay for it. So it's like you can't just not pay it. And so if you're refusing to sacrifice to pay your stuff, implicitly, you are suggesting that someone else ought to. Now, it sounds like she's got this consolidated loan and will pay it off herself, and that's fine, but there's an air of entitlement beyond this. Like, I shouldn't have to be frugal. And it's like, actually, you kind of should, because you took out $30K you didn't have in terrible debt, and you're a grown woman, and that was your choice. And so it's not unfair or cruel or mean to expect you to deal with the bed that you made.
Yeah, this It triggered me. I'm not going to lie. And I think it's because I come from a family that like we always do the right thing. Even when we didn't have a lot of money, like we always paid our debts. We always like lived within our means. We always went without when we needed to. Dating back to like, I remember my mom telling me a story about when she was born. Her dad was in the Navy. He was in the Korean War, and they were really poor. They lived on a military base. And my grandma, who hated ironing, would like take on other sailors' clothes to iron for extra money because they were so poor. And they had 3 young daughters. And they mostly were eating rice and beans, I think. And that's really what they had. And one of her friends said to her at one point, you could get on welfare. Why don't you get on welfare? Like you qualify. And my grandmother said, because we're not starving. That's for people who are starving. We just don't have a lot of money and we're going to work hard and get through it. But like, that's wrong, right? Like she saw that as morally wrong to take welfare. Like we can work, we're going to make it work. We're going to live, within our means. And if that means we don't eat great, then we don't eat great for a while. And they went on to become very wealthy people in their life and own businesses and were quite successful. But my parents had that same mentality. My dad's a pastor. He obviously didn't make a lot of money when we were first starting out. And same with me, like I can't, to me, being $30,000 in credit card debt, first and foremost, I can't wrap my mind around. When I first graduated college, I made $28,000 a year and I lived in Nashville. I was not thriving by any means. And I did not have credit card debt. Like, I don't understand how you rack up that much. That is astronomical to me. And
a lot of people have a lot more than that.
It makes me feel queasy just thinking about it. Like, it makes me feel physically ill. Like, and she's just kicking it. Like, I mean, the amount that I would have 2, 3, 4 jobs, like, I got myself in, I think, $4,000 worth of credit card debt somewhere in my 20s when my dog died and I didn't have money for his medical bills. And I think I ran up like 4,000 or so, and I immediately had a second job and was like working to pay it off. Like, so I watched a few of her other videos because I was just shell shocked that somebody could be this flippant. And she said that the rates were only 8%, and that was good. She said that they were making regular payments. To her credit, it does seem like she plans to pay this off. But she said basically what happened is her husband lost his job during COVID, which is awful and terrible. And she was pregnant. But then what doesn't make any sense is that when she had her baby, she quit her job and they started putting everything on a credit card. So that's when I was like, hold on, what?
Also, her husband lost her job during COVID. Well, babe, we had super ultra charged generous unemployment benefits for like 2 years expanded because of COVID. So what did you do with that money, or why didn't you take it? Like,
yeah.
And then the other thing too is the 8% isn't good, but I think what she means is it's better than the original credit card, which she said is 25%. Yeah. Credit cards have insane interest rates. So it's a consolidated loan down to 8%, which is still feels high to us, but I guess it is low compared to that original 25%.
But still, and look, I'm not a Dave Ramsey absolutist. I'm really not. I think he often gives bad financial advice as far as getting wealthy. But as far as getting out of debt, he's pretty much unparalleled. And I think the things that he would say to do and that she's kind of scoffing at are exactly what you should be doing. And I'm not saying you have to eat rice and beans, but like, you should be cooking at home. You should be eating like chicken. You should be cooking cheaply. You should be taking on a second job. She's like, I don't want to lose time with my kids. I mean, okay, but I bet your kids would like to not be in a financial hole their whole lives with you. Like, sometimes you have to have, delayed gratification, and sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do to
I have more sympathy for the kids one than I do. I won't give up my salads. Like,
but like, my dad had to spend a ton of time away from us to build up to where he's at. Like that just is the reality of life. There are trade-offs, and I don't know this. I don't like this attitude. I see this a lot among younger people and on the left. It's this whole like, I shouldn't have to go without niceties, right? Like, they'll be online complaining about their financial picture, and they'll be like, they'll have their nails done. They'll have like fake eyelashes. You can tell they have like expensive hair extensions. These things are costly.
I can't tell any of that.
Well, I can, and a lot of other commenters will point it out, right? Because like, all right, I have my nails done now. I never did this until recently. Every time I get my nails done, it's about $100 plus tip. It's not cheap, and you have to do it every 2 weeks or so, right? So if you're somebody who's complaining about not being able to afford life, and I can tell you're spending about $200 a month on your nails, I'm going to ask some questions here. And so people will start pushing back, and they'll say these things, and the response is always like, I shouldn't have to give up little niceties or little luxuries just because I'm poor. Or I shouldn't have to go without things that make me like being alive because I didn't create this mess. And it's like, oh my gosh, yes, you do. You should go without these things for a time period until you're in a better financial spot. Like, take some self-responsibility here, but they just have this notion that everybody else has always had it easy, that they are uniquely struggling. These are really different times for them, and this whole mess isn't their fault at all, and certainly not the result of policies they support, and therefore they shouldn't have to live in this reality, right? And it's just this suspended sort of childish outlook on the world. And it's like, these things can be true. Cost of living is too high. Government policies are making it hard to live. But you still have to deal with the reality of what the situation is, right? You can't just bury your head in the sand and pretend that things aren't what they are.